Hi there, good evening, everyone. I'll now call this meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. My name is Lindsay McNally. I'll be acting as chairperson for the meeting this evening, and I welcome all individuals present. I have just a few introductory remarks to get us started. This meeting of the Property Standards and Animal Services Appeal Committee is being held electronically and live streamed on the internet. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 emergency and requirements for physical distancing, no in-person attendance is permitted at this meeting. All regular practices and procedures of the committee continue to apply during this electronic meeting. If we do encounter any technical difficulties, as we did at the start of the meeting, we may take a brief recess while they're resolved. Thank you for your patience. The Town of Ajax Animal Services Appeal Committee has full delegation of the authority in the Municipal Act to hear appeals. The committee shall hear evidence presented by witnesses, town bylaw staff, property owners, owners of animals, or other individuals that may have evidence relating to the case and make decisions on the status of an order to restrain by confirming, modifying, rescinding, or extending the time to comply with the order. If an individual or the town does not agree with the decision of the committee with regard to an order of restrain decision, the order may be appealed to the General Government Committee of the town. All appeals processes will be outlined in the written decision of the committee, which will be mailed to the appellant. The format of this meeting will be that each appeal will be heard in the order listed on the agenda. Town staff will first present their testimony to the committee, and the committee will have an opportunity to ask the officer questions. At the conclusion of the committee questions, the appellant will then have the option to ask questions of the officer. This process will continue for each witness that will give testimony on behalf of the town. After the town has concluded their case, the appellant will present their testimony to the committee. The committee will then ask the appellant questions, and at the conclusion of committee questions, town staff will then have the option to ask questions of the appellant. This process will continue for each witness that will give testimony on behalf of the appellant. At the conclusion of the presentation of evidence, each side will be asked to summarize their respective positions, starting with town staff. The committee will then deliberate in a public forum. It's important that the appellant remain present through this process, as there may be additional questions raised by members. I'll get us started on our agenda items. The first item is the approval of the minutes dated November 12th, 2020. Is there a motion from the committee to approve the minutes?
Yes, I'll put forward a motion.
Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Raise your hands. Thank you, that motion is carried. So we have one appeal on the agenda this evening. It's Mila Glowski. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, 19 Chalmers Crescent. And we'll start with Officer McPhee. Officer McPhee, can you please present your testimony?
I received a phone call. Sorry, am I coming through okay?
You're coming through okay now, but you're a little bit quiet.
Okay, sorry, I'll try to speak louder and bring you a little closer. On the day of May 28th, I received a phone call in the morning from Mrs. King. She stated that her daughter was bit by a dog the night before, so the night of May 27th, around 7 p.m. at the St. Andrews Community Garden. She stated that she was gardening when her daughter came running up to her and said that she was crying and said that she had been bitten by a dog. At that time, Miss King did make contact with the owner of the dog, which she described as a teenaged female who was walking the dog at the time. They exchanged contact information. That way later in the day, Miss King could follow up with them to ensure that the dog was up to date on any rabies vaccines. Later that night, Miss King did make contact with them, and she was sent a copy of the dog's paperwork. The dog was described as a mixed breed Yorkshire Terrier type dog. It was up to date on its vaccines in the paperwork she was provided with, and that's attached in this statement as well. So the dog was belonging to 19 Chalmers Crescent. I attended that address myself on June 3rd. I spoke to a teenaged female at the door who said that she was walking the dog at the time of the incident. She described the incident that the child had been around them at the park she had spoke to the child and informed the child that her dog wasn't friendly and asked that the child stay away from the dog. And then she said a little while later, the child appeared to come up behind them. And she said it appeared that their dog had bit the child. On July 9th, I did send out a modified order to restrain. So it's a little bit different than some of the other orders that the committee might be familiar with. In this order, we basically waived the muzzling component. So everything else still stood, so that the dog has to be restrained on a leash when it's on its own property, or it has to be held back by a fence that's sufficient enough to contain the dog. The dog must also be walked by somebody who's over the age of 18. And the dog must be licensed with the town, and we must be aware if the ownership of the dog changes. So basically it's the same as other order to restrains, aside from that there's no muzzling component with this one. So I sent out the muzzling or the order to restrain notice on July 9th. And then later on we got the correspondence requesting the appeal meeting that we're doing tonight. And I think that's everything I have.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions for the officer?
Yes, please. I'd like to ask a question. Officer McPhee, what was your reasoning for not including the muzzle order in the order to restrain?
Yeah, so the dog was a smaller breed dog. The dog is less than a year old. I did speak to them about if they'd be interested in getting any training or anything for the dog. The answer at that time was not really, maybe if there was any more instances. But basically due to the size of the dog, I was fairly confident that if it was to be walked by somebody over the age of 18, that they would be able to maintain distance from other people and kind of be assertive enough to keep other people back, and that would probably mitigate most issues.
Okay, thank you.
I have no questions.
And me as well. Ms. Nielaglowski, this is now your opportunity to ask any questions you may have for the officer. Please don't start providing any testimony or evidence. You'll have that opportunity later in this meeting. Now is just the time for questions to the officer if you have any.
Okay, we don't have any questions at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I believe that the town does have another witness here to speak this evening. Ms. King, can you please present your testimony?
Sure. Do you want video on? Does it matter? Or okay. Yeah. So on the 27th of May, around 6 or 7 p.m. at night, yeah, my daughter was bitten by this small dog in St. Andrews Park. While we were gardening in the plot kind of adjacent to the green space there. And so, you know, my daughter Bailey, she kind of runs around in that area sometimes. And I always say, you know, ask first, remember, don't get too close. So, you know, there's always dogs around there. She was kind of picking flowers, you know, running around that area. Then she came running over screaming, you know, and really upset, saying that the dog had bit her. So, you know, my kind of priority then was just getting her calm and trying to get her to tell me what had happened. But I saw the kind of, you know, tear or rip in her pants, and then I saw blood on her leg. So yeah, my priority was getting her kind of over into the car with my husband. And then I thought, well, I should go talk to the owner, who had by then walked across, I guess, to the other side of the park. So I said, you know, I just want to make sure, you know, get the rabies info and stuff. So I kind of went over there. You know, the owner was cooperative, which was great. It was the teenager there at the time. But she said, yeah, I think she's up to date. She gave me the info. And then, you know, somebody phoned me later that night. So, you know, they were cooperative. I just kind of want to make sure this doesn't happen again. So, yeah, I think that's, you know, the dog was aggressive with me, even like when I walked up to her over on the other side of the park, like on a long leash, but kind of lunging and growling, that kind of behavior. So again, they were cooperative. The dog was, up to date in terms of rabies shot, but it was still traumatic in the sense of, me having to phone kind of telehealth and the doctor the next day and make sure my daughter had her shots that she may have needed, and talking to, just a few different parties to make sure, am I doing it right in terms of taking care of her wound and stuff like that. I talked to animal services, I talked to Durham police, non-emergency, and I just kind of took care of the wound at home. And I think the main thing now is that she's really, really scared of dogs. And again, the wound healed on its own. It was a puncture, but it did bruise up, but it didn't get anything kind of beyond that. So that's kind of what happened in that area.
Thank you, Ms. King. Is your testimony complete?
Yeah.
Great. So committee members, do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes, I have a couple of questions, if I could. The first one is about the dog owner. You say the dog owner is a teenager. Did this dog owner seem to have control of the dog and act responsibly when you encountered the dog owner in the park?
So the first time, yeah, like after the dog had bitten my daughter, she didn't really come up to me with the dog and kind of explain what had happened. But again, I was just focused on my daughter and getting her to calm down. So when I went and approached the owner at the other side of the park, yeah, was she in control? Yes. I mean, the dog was on a leash. It was on a long leash. But like I said, I was distancing just because of COVID anyway. But I think if it was a kid or something, they would go close. So was she in control of the dog? I would say yes, in so much as a long leash like that would allow. Wasn't really like holding it back. You know what I mean? But same when she was kind of sitting under the tree. But I think, again, a shorter leash probably would have made a difference. So.
Thank you. The dog, when you approached the owner and the dog, did the dog behave in a threatening or aggressive manner to you when you approached them?
When I went over on my own, yes, it was just kind of, kind of pulling at the end of its leash, growling, and just barking and kind of aggressive type behavior. Yeah. So just making a real racket,
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
I have a question as well, if that's okay. Just wondering, did you witness the incident occurring at all? Did you see the dog bite at the time? Did you witness any of the interaction between your daughter and the dog?
No. I asked her later when she was calm, like what had happened. Did you, do what we talk about with the dogs, which is, if you want to pet them, like mommy's there and you put your hand out and ask. And she said, I was picking flowers. And it, came up to me or whatever. So no, I didn't, because you can picture kind of where the garden plot is. It's like the garden plot, and then there's like a pathway and kind of green space. So she was kind of on the green space there. So we kind of have our head in the dirt, and she's over there kind of running around a lot. And there's other kids there and stuff a lot. So I didn't see the actual thing happen. I just saw the immediate aftermath. But I do remember seeing the owner and the dog in my peripheral vision, like knowing kind of Bailey was over there with her or in that area. So yeah, but I didn't see it happen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it for my questions.
Thank you. I have just one additional question for you. And that sort of comes back to the original question asked by committee member Saunders. So you talked about the dog being in control in so much as they were on sort of a long leash. Mm-hmm. What about what you might perceive as verbal control? Did the owner of the dog make some effort to verbally contain the dog that was sort of, at the end of the leash growling, as you said, making a racket? Or were they completely reliant on that leash for control of the dog?
I don't remember that, to be honest. I don't remember her doing that. She was she was talking to me, and I realized then how kind of young she was, and I said, you know, does the dog have its shots? I need a number and take a picture so that I can follow up. And she said, I don't know about the shots, but I think we gave her we gave her pills or something. So that we were just kind of communicating. The dog was going nuts. Was she verbally correcting? I don't think much, no. You know. But again, she was giving me information, right? So
Okay. Thank you so much. Ms. Miłoglowski, now is your opportunity if you have any questions for Ms. King with respect to her testimony.
Well, I guess the first question we have is, I know you mentioned that you didn't see your daughter, right? And we were also at the same garden as well. We were inside as well doing our gardening. And we know that it was a pretty long distance from where we were. I believe your lot is maybe 2 lots over from ours. Like we were generally in the same area, but we were behind trees and bushes. There's like wild raspberries, that little bush that covers, and then behind that is the actual park trail, and then there's trees, right? So there was no direct visually that we could see them, because I couldn't see her either from that moment when they were walking there. So, I mean, from what I heard on the story from Nicole, it was more of a self-defense or more of a reaction from our pup, just from getting close to her. That's what was her thing. But I just wanted to ask you that, like, when you spoke with your daughter, did she mention anything about how she approached her, or what she did, I guess?
sorry, what's your question? How my daughter explained it to me?
Yeah, her initial approach to them. Did she approach to them the way you said that you taught her, with like putting your hand out?
She said she didn't go near it to pet it. She said she was picking flowers around it, right? Because we tell her stay in that area, which is where the dog was on a leash. So she said she was picking flowers there, which is what she does there, right? So I mean, that would come later. I couldn't even get anything verbal out of her because she was screaming so much. So, and I'm not sure the relevance of the bushes, but it doesn't obscure my view of where I'm standing in my plot. So there's an opening that we go through. So.
Okay. A general question for the committee. At this moment, I just ask question for Ms. King. I don't give any other details on the incident.
That's correct. So once you're complete with your questions for Ms. King, then I will give you an opportunity to present your testimony. I'll guide you through the process, and I'll let you know sort of what we're looking for at each step.
Okay. So I don't think I have questions then.
Can I?
Okay, thank you
Excuse
so
me,
much.
Madam Chair, can I ask who's speaking?
Oh, hi. My name here is Gabriela Mancilla. I am the older sister of Nicole. I registered Lola with the vet as well as with DocuPet. I handle anything with her regarding documents or registry, because we're in the same household. And my sister is here. Hold on. She's underage. Is she allowed to be on camera as well?
No, that's fine.
She can certainly address the committee. I know that it is the practice of town staff when we're posting minutes and such that any personal details related to minors will be redacted. So it's to your comfort level, I would say.
Okay. And my mother is here as well. Like my mother is here as well as her father. Celia's here, Chris is here, myself, Gabriela. I'm doing the main of the talking, and my sister is right next to me as well, Nicole.
Thank you so much. And so that concludes the evidence that's being heard on behalf of the town. So now is your opportunity to present your testimony, Ms. Miłoglowski or Ms. Mancilla.
Yes. So on the day of the event, my sister, she is 13 years old. She is with our dog Lola. She's a mix, half Maltese, half Yorkie. She weighs 3 kilos. So she's a fairly small pup. She barely reached a year old, and we got her during COVID, during July 2020, sorry. So she's very good around the house. She's very good with our immediate family and our cousins. And we are working on her getting outside at the time, taking her to the garden. She's been to the garden multiple times because the community garden is something my family and I go almost every weekend at that time. So my sister and our dog would be there anyways. And she's had multiple interactions with other parents, other children, as little as small toddlers that are barely walking. And Lola has shown really good behavior. She hasn't attempted to do any growling at them. We do take it slowly because some children are unexpected than others, but we are training her ourselves. And on the day of the incident, as per my sister, she was sitting by the tree, cleaning out her purse with Lola at her feet. And the little girl had approached them previously. She's tried to approach them and tried to pet our dog, but Nicole has verbally said that she shouldn't because she's in training. As per Nicole, the dog came up to her. I mean, sorry, not the dog. The child came up to her from behind, and she didn't really see anything. All she heard was just Lola turn around and kind of pull on the leash a little bit, and then she just saw the little girl run away. At that moment, we heard because we heard the little girl running and crying. She was crying a lot for a little while, and she was unattended during that whole time because, like I said, I had no visual on there when they were over there. And after the incident happened, my sister came up and spoke with Miss King, and also the second time gave her information. But at the moment, my sister, it's the first time it ever happened because, like I said, our previous visits that we've had has never been this way. So she didn't really know how to respond, but our dog is up to date with everything. As per the picture that Ms. King provided as well, you can see that Lola is actually in a short leash. She's right next to her knee. So my sister had control of her at all times with the leash, and Lola does listen to her. Although I am the register of her, Nicole is really the primary owner, and Lola knows it. And that's really the incident part of it that we've had, right? Should I
You
elaborate?
can feel free to speak to the order, the reasons for your appeal. This is really your reason, or this is your opportunity to state your whole position. So feel free to keep going if you have more to say.
Okay, so and the reason that we are doing our appeal is we recognize of the incident. I mean, we have been training Lola since then. We take her out on our parks. She's always on leash, obviously. We never take her out anywhere without leash in general, even before this incident. She's always been on leash. The only time she goes off leash is when we're at Greenwood Park, where it's off leash area for dogs. But otherwise, she's always been on leash. But since the incident, we've only been able to take her on leash places. But Lola, given her size, she's very tiny, but she's very energetic. So whenever we go to our nearby parks or nearby school, the fields, the track and field, as well as Greenwood Park, she wants to run. So we want to let her go. So that's really one of the main reasons why we're appealing, because ever since the incident and prior to that, she's had no other incidents like this. And since then, with COVID opening up a little bit, we've been seeing more and more families in the parks, and she's been behaving well. And as well as our family, she's finally met our whole family because she couldn't during COVID. And our whole family includes of numerous little cousins from the age of 2 up to 12. So she's been interacting well. She's been playing with other puppies as well, other dogs. We have our cousin who brings their dog over on a regular basis now. So she's more social than she was when this happened, because we do recognize, being a COVID dog, she wasn't socially involved with any children or any dogs when we first had her. So that was a struggle, but now she's doing very well. So that's the reason why we want to appeal for her to be able to be off leash in designated areas that are for off leash parks and things like that. As well as we wanted to appeal the notion that she can only be with over 18 years old, because my sister is 13, she's turning 14 very soon. and she is responsible of Lola. She takes care of her and makes sure she has all of her needed monthly medication, which is like ticks and heartworm kind of medication that she takes. And she's responsible for her in general. So, and Lola's only 3 kilos, but Nicole has a pretty good control of her as well. So that's also the other reason I want to appeal that portion as well. So she can walk her on her own and be responsible of her outside. I don't think I have anything else to add unless there's questions.
Thank you very much. So now this is the opportunity for the committee to ask questions of the appellant.
I have no questions.
I do have a few questions, actually. Thank you very much for participating in this and being here to talk tonight. In terms of the type of leash, we heard testimony that it was a long leash. Can you describe the leash for us? Is it a flat fabric leash, a leather leash, or is it like one of those retractable ones that is like on a string?
Oh, no, it's a flat leash.
A flat leash. Do you know how long it is?
I believe it's only 1 meter long. It's a standard leash that you would get because when you buy a leash, there's always the long one that's extra long, and then there's a standard. But if anything, my dad can measure the leash because he has.
No, that's okay. It's not like one that goes out 20 or 30 feet or something like that.
No, because prior to this, like I said, we would let Lola loose at the park before this incident, even at the Andrews Park. Melissa knows her, the coordinator of the community park. So prior to this, we always walk with Lola with a short leash, Nicole or myself. And then when we get to the park, we would let her loose because she loves running. Like, she is an outdoor dog. And even if we try running after her, we don't keep up. So she runs and she's okay. So we never had the need to buy a long leash ever because she was always good on her own, free. So we just have the standard one.
Okay. Thank you. That was my only question.
I myself do have a few questions for you. The first question that I wanted to ask really relates to something that I picked on both in the letter as well as in your testimony this evening. And that is that there is desire to have the dog Lola running not just at Greenwood Park in the off-leash area, but perhaps potentially track fields. So I wanted to get your understanding with respect to the off-leash rules for the dog and really what the intention is. Were we to modify the order that might allow Lola to be off-leash in public areas? What is the intention in terms of responsibility there?
Well, the intention for that is that she is behaving well, even when we are outside. We have a pretty big backyard as well. Even before the incident, she's doing very well. So when she runs and comes back, we're trying to teach her how to do stuff like that, even fetch a ball and run away and come back. So far, she's only fetching little apples because she's so tiny. But really, she needs the exercise. And our immediate, my sister just said that she requires an extra long, large dog walk, is what she said. But our immediate, you can't call it a park, it's more of a school. Our immediate school here is Dennis O'Connor, and they have a big track there. We do go to Greenwood on the weekends. We drive up north to Westney and do the walk and the hike with Lola. But because our immediate need is, the track field at Dock, so she can walk and run with Nicole and, do her daily walks that she does, we need her to be off leash to get that exercise. So that's really what our intention is, really more for the health of her, because Lola is an active dog. But we are training with her every day. So my hope is that, we continue training to teach her to return. She's done very well with returning, but she's not 100% perfect yet. But that's our intention, so that she can go and accompany Nicole on the walks that she goes to Dock with.
Thank you. The second question I have is with respect to training. So you've referred to some ongoing training efforts with Lola. Has there been any professional training sought, or has it been sort of within the family?
It's been within the family. We have our cousin who lives maybe 5 minutes away from us. Her name is Paula, and she has a dog that's been coming over here and being friends with Lola. And she successfully trained her dog. So she's been teaching us how to do a couple of tricks with her, how to teach her how to stay, how to teach her how to be a little bit patient with her treats. And we've been watching YouTube videos and kind of doing it on Lola. And she's been very well so far. That's the kind of training we've been doing. We watch a lot of videos and try it on her. We do a lot of reading and see what we can help with. But we've only ever had the chance to expose her to just our immediate family. So we've tried with the little ones in our family, and they all know that Lola has a case. And they find it a little bit entertaining because she's so docile now with them. But I know we're taking it seriously when we go outside with any new people and letting them know as well that she's in training. But it's only our training that we're doing, not professional trainings, videos and things like that. And she does know commands when we call her name, and she's learning more now than what she knew at the time.
Okay, thank you. The next question I have is with respect to the order where only a person over the 18 years of age should be in control of Lola went off the owner's property. So speaking as an individual committee member, one thing that might give me comfort in modifying the order to allow a minor to care for Lola outside of your property might be a muzzle. Is that something that you guys would be against as a family? What would be more important to you? Would it be the muzzle, or would it be like to have no muzzle, or would it be to have someone under 18 walk Lola?
We ideally wouldn't want her to have a muzzle on. I don't know if she even can fit in one just because of her size. But ideally we wouldn't. But also Nicole is only 14, so she will be walking with an adult until she's around 16. That's probably when we're going to feel more comfortable to let her go on her own. But again, when Nicole hits 16, she's not yet 18, right? She will be bigger. She will be more responsible by then. So ideally by then she should be able to walk her on her own. We're more comfortable letting her go. But at the moment, she wouldn't be walking on her own. That's really why I want to take off the 18 years because, she's going to eventually turn 16, and that's when I'm going to give her more responsibilities. And I would like for her to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you. And I have just one final question, which may be the most difficult one to answer, and I want to approach it sensitively. I know that this is a difficult situation to be in, especially with a minor who was involved in the incident. But what has your family learned from this incident with respect to your obligations in public safety when you have a dog that may be aggressive towards others? So looking back at the incident, what could have been done differently by the dog owner to prevent the bite from occurring?
Well, the number one thing that Nicole herself has learned is restraint. Lola is a very cute dog. So a lot of the times people that walk by and children that walk by just want to grab her and pet her. And they approach us really easily. And Nicole has not yet learned at that time to say no. But since then, she's learned how to say no and say it to anybody that, no, you can't touch her. She's in training. That's something that we really had to learn pretty hard because up until then, people approach and say, oh, she's so cute. What a baby. Can I hold her? And we think she's cute too, right? So we didn't want to be mean and say no. And we're like, listen, she's training, kind of talk them, but we weren't very firm. So that's one of the biggest things that we've all learned. And us as a family, just also ensuring that Nicole practices that to make sure that she's firm with anybody around her to say no and to keep distance from people. That's something that could have been done better, as well as in situations where children come back to her and insistently come back to her. It would have been better that she would have come to us right away, Nicole, and told us, hey, there's a person or somebody's wanting to get Lola and they're not listening, then we could have intervened. That's something that we could have done better. And that's something that she knows now, that in any event that somebody's insisting to touch her or wanting to pet her, or she notices somebody's following her, to come our way. So that's something that we've learned since then.
Okay, thank you very much. Any last committee questions? No? Officer McPhee, do you have any questions for the appellant?
I have no questions.
Thank you. And Ms. Mansilla, I just want to confirm there's no one else there who'd like to speak as a witness before we move on to committee deliberations?
1 second. Do you guys want to speak at all? No? Mom? My mom, she wants to speak. I'm gonna just bring her. Her name is Celia Niewatowski. She's mom.
Good evening, and thank you so much for this opportunity to give us to talk about our dog. And really, we are looking for some help as well, because Nicole is young, and then she need her dog to walk with her, and then she's a good help to her to go for exercise and do her motivation to end this also a new system, new pandemic, whatever is happening now in the world. So just give us consideration to get this case and then get those help what our dog needed. Thank you so much for everybody to be with us and happy to have opportunity to talk. And then sorry for the girl as well for the incident what happened.
Thank you very much. Does the committee have any questions for this witness?
No.
No.
No. Officer McPhee, do you have any questions for this witness? McPhee? I didn't hear you there. Sorry. I saw you unmute, but I didn't hear you.
My apologies. No, I have no questions.
Thank you very much. So the last step before the committee begins deliberation is that each party will have an opportunity to do a final summary of their position. And we'll start with the town. Officer McPhee.
So the town does still believe that an order to restrain, the way that it is currently written, that is still a position that we would uphold. The town would also like to point out parks which are requirements to have a leash on. So I know there was a little bit of talk about St. Andrews Park and sometimes running the dog loose there before the incident. I just wanted to make it known that St. Andrews Park is not a leash-free park for any dogs, regardless of an order or not. So I just want to bring up that part, but no, our position is still with the order to restrain.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mansilla, you do have an opportunity to give us a final summary of your position.
Yes. On our family, we understand the situation and we do feel sorry for the incident. But we do feel that we have improved as a family and on my sister's behalf as well, because we are all more aware and now we've done a bit of training. And we are not asking to, appeal the whole order of restraint. We're really looking for places that are marked for open leash, like Greenwood Park, like any parks that are for off leash areas, so that we can, I guess, let our dog go with my sister. That's really the main areas that I'm looking for. If in the event that track and field areas like dock is not an open leash area, then we understand we'll go to designated areas. But at designated areas, we would like to have her off leash. Of course, she will be supervised by my sister or myself at the time. And also to have the appeal for my sister to be able to be on her own with her. Lola in general, since then, has grown a lot as a puppy. she's still only 3 kilos, but she's smarter and she's more aware as well as of her surroundings. And really, that is our position, that we still want to appeal for the off-leash area and for no age range restriction, I guess. Yes.
Thank you very much. The committee will now deliberate in public forum. Just as a reminder, we ask that you do remain present in case we do have additional questions for you. And if we do, we'll call on you as we deliberate. So committee members, I like to begin usually by just checking in to see what our initial thoughts are so we can hone in on areas where we need to have more discussion. And I'll pick on you in the order I see on my screen. Committee member Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this is a really unfortunate and traumatic event for a little 6-year-old child, to be sure. We're also dealing with a dog handler or owner who is 13 years old and a puppy. The evidence we're hearing is mostly from other parties, the mother and the older sister and the 2 mothers, I suppose. I'm accepting that the dog was somewhat confronted and was acting in a protective manner. I feel that's the demeanor of the dog, if you will. I don't see this as a dog that's a menace running around attacking people. It doesn't sound like that, which we have had at our committee before. This is a dog which admittedly is very cute and attracts a lot of attention, particularly among younger children. And that's what we got to protect against. And I'm looking at this order. I'm not sure because we don't know Nicole. She's 13. I don't know if this is, how responsible. Her mother, Celia, came on, said she's young. Gabriella talked about her reaching 16 years old and perhaps then being able to solely take care of the dog. So I'm looking at some modification to number 4 to be sure, which is the one about the age. I think we can do something there. And the other one troubles me. Should the dog be allowed to be off a leash at a designated park? I'd like to hear some more from my colleagues on that one. I'll turn it over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Committee member Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like my committee member Saunders, I feel that this is a very unfortunate incident for all parties concerned. Traumatic for the little girl who was bit, for sure. Traumatic for the family to have that happen, but also traumatic for the family of the dog. The 13-year-old who was in charge of the dog at the time, doesn't seem that she purposely allowed this dog to become aggressive or reach out to this little girl. And in fact, it seems like she tried to warn the child to stay away. But the child had other ideas and came up behind or in a manner that the person holding the leash wasn't aware of. But certainly the dog was and became alarmed. And as dogs sometimes do when they're approached without their owner's knowledge and awareness in a unpredictable manner like children do, oftentimes do act out in certain ways. So I don't believe this is an aggressive dog by nature. I don't believe it's a threat to the general public as long as it's on a leash. It sounds like the leash was an appropriate leash. Most standard leashes are 1.8 meters long, which is about 6 feet in length. Certainly, like one of the witnesses stated, with COVID, we shouldn't be getting closer than 6 feet to other people anyways. But it sounds like this child wasn't aware of boundaries, and perhaps being unsupervised at the time wasn't adequately keeping her distance from the dog. So would this incident have occurred had the child not been unsupervised and approaching the dog? Likely not. But we don't know because we don't have any witnesses that actually observed this occurring other than the two people that it occurred with, as well as the dog. So from that perspective, I'm not convinced that that there needs to be any sort of a muzzle order or amendment to this with regards to that. It sounds like the bylaw officer did use judgment that this 3-kilo dog, which is 6 pounds, is not something that would be an aggressive threat. And that being said, a 6-pound dog at the end of a leash with some appropriate training would be well controlled by a 13-year-old. And so I'm not sure that I'm convinced that the age is a factor, and whether this dog can be controlled. However, the order to restrain and be on a leash, I'm also not convinced that the family is aware of what's off leash or not off leash areas. And allowing a dog to run off leash is asking for trouble when it's not an off leash area, not just for other people's safety, but for the dog's safety as well. So those are my current thoughts on this situation.
Thank you. I'll share my own perspective now as well. I agree with the perception that the dog is probably not an aggressive dog or a menace, that there's probably some, fear or protective quality that caused the incident to occur. A lack of training can also play into these incidents, in my opinion. I do have some concerns with respect to making any modifications to the order. The first, as you touched on, Committee Member Black, is that the designated off-leash areas. I don't think that there is real clarity on behalf of the appellant about what is permitted or where off-leash is permitted and where it's not, and that gives me some concern with respect to public safety and as well for safety of the animal. I'm also a bit concerned that there's not been any professional training that's been sought following this incident. Training, from my perspective, is not just valuable for the animal, but also for the owner to understand their obligations on how to properly control the dog. So when I look to item 4 of the order to restrain, there's this concept of full control, and I touched on it at the beginning of the meeting, whether or not the appellant had good verbal control of the dog despite the leash, and I did not get the sense that there was any effort in the situation. And while there can be learning opportunities from difficult situations like this, I'm not sure that having the dog be cared for in public by a minor is a responsible thing to do. When I asked the appellant what was learned from the situation or what might have been done differently, one of the answers was, well, if she had been aware, she should have taken the dog away to find an adult to let them know what the situation was going on. So that doesn't give me comfort that that the appellant does have the responsibility to prevent a member of the public from touching their dog when they're aggressive without the intervention of an adult. So those are my main points. To speak to Committee Member Saunders' original point, I'm not opposed necessarily to modifying to be 16 years of age rather than 18 years of age. But from my perspective, that's the only modification to the order that I would make. Any other discussion at this point?
No, I'll just come back again. Yeah, it's a tough one, the leash part, but I do agree with what you said, and I would support keeping number 3 as is, and I would like to see number 4 be 16 years.
Committee Member Black, do you have any objection to that position?
I don't.
It sounds like we may be ready to make a motion. Do either committee member wish to make a motion at this time?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the order to restrain be modified on point number 4, that being to keep the dog under the full control of a person of at least 16 years of age who is physically capable of controlling the dog.
All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. That motion is carried. Ms. Niemagowski, the committee has deliberated, and we do advise that the order to restrain will be modified under point number 4 to change the age of the person controlling the animal from 18 years of age to 16 years of age. A written decision will be mailed to you following this meeting. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, the appeals process will be detailed in the written decision mailed to you, and I have outlined those options earlier in the meeting. Thank you very much for your participation.
Oh, Miss, am I allowed to ask a question, or is this closed now?
The committee has ruled, unless a committee member is opposed, I am open to hearing a final statement from you, but it will not change the results of the meeting.
Okay, because we have one question that my sister is urgently asking me if she can ask on her. She has a question for you, if you would allow.
Please feel free to ask your question.
Hi, I'm Nicole. So my question was, so we do take her to dog and other parks like that. And I wanted to know, since I can't let her go because it's not an off-leash area, could I get a longer leash so I can at least try and keep up with her if I'm running with her?
So the order as modified does require that the dog is on a leash of a maximum of, I think it was 1.8 meters. Yes, 1.8 meters. So I recall earlier from the testimony that the current leash that you have may be about 1 meter in length. So you may have some opportunity to add a little bit of length, but not longer than 1.8 meters.
So, okay, so if we wanted to appeal this, we would have to go through the process again then and send a letter?
So the appeal would be to the General Government Committee of the town. So you will get in the mail a written decision of the committee, and within that letter, it will give you instructions on how to proceed if you wish to appeal.
Okay. And to confirm, only amendment to number 4, right? Nothing about off-leash areas? Because I heard the
That's
talk,
correct.
but
So
I didn't understand.
Yeah. So the modification to the order is only on point number 4, and that's to change the age from 18 years of age to 16 years of age.
Okay, and in point number 3, it doesn't state anywhere about off-leash areas that are designated. Does that mean that that is allowed or it's not allowed?
So it's not allowed. So when the dog is not on your property, it must be on a leash of no longer than 1.8 meters.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm now going to call on town staff.
Oh, you're muted.
Thank you so much. I was so perfect until this point. So I'm now going to call on town staff, Ms. Williamson, for a verbal update on Solomon 6 Olson Drive.
There is no update for this. The town has not received any additional complaints and no appeal was filed for the decision. So there's been no developments on that case.
Thank you. Is there any new business to discuss at this meeting?
No, not from the town.
Thank you. So seeing none, I believe we have concluded the business for which this meeting was called. Can I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will raise a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, raise your hands. Thank you. That motion is carried. Thanks again, everyone, for your time this evening. We appreciate the participation.
Thank you.